Have you ever wondered what it feels like to be buried alive? To feel the weight of the earth pressing down, with only a sliver of hope to cling to? Today we're diving into a story so chilling, so unbelievable, it feels like it's ripped from a horror movie. But this is the true story of Barbara Jane Mackle, a story of survival against all odds. The year is 1968. Barbara Jane Mackle is living a fairy tale life. She's young, beautiful, a top student, and the cherished only daughter of a real estate millionaire. For her parents, she was their entire world. But even a life of privilege can't escape the cruel twists of fate. That winter, the Hong Kong flu was ravaging the nation, and it had reached Barbara's campus in Atlanta. Terrified for her safety, Barbara's mother whisked her away from the dorms to the relative safety of a roadway inn motel, intending to nurse her back to health in isolation. The air was thick with the scent of sickness, but they thought they were safe. They were wrong. Just past midnight on December 16th, a sharp, urgent knock rattled their door. Standing outside were two figures dressed as police officers. They brought terrible news. Barbara's boyfriend, Stuart, had been in a horrific car accident and was in critical condition. Panicked and worried, Barbara's mother unlocked the safety chain for just a second. That second was all it took. The officers were imposters. They burst into the room with brutal force. One of them quickly subdued the terrified mother with chloroform, while the other turned to a feverish, weakened Barbara. Within moments, the nightmare began. Barbara, sick and helpless, was dragged from her bed out of the motel and forced into the back of a blue Volvo. They didn't drive to a hospital or a police station. Instead, they drove for what felt like an eternity, 50 miles outside the city, deep into the remote Georgia woods. This wasn't a simple kidnapping for ransom. This was something far more sinister, a meticulously planned act of terror. Her captors had prepared a special coffin for her. It was a fiberglass box, sealed and insulated, but equipped with a small fan, a dim light, and some water laced with sedatives. They took a photo of her holding a sign that read, "Kidnapped," a proof of life that would become a symbol of her torment. Then the lid was sealed shut. That was the last time she saw the sky. Suddenly she heard a sound that would haunt her forever. The soft, relentless cascade of sand and dirt hitting the fiberglass box. They were burying her alive. Her sentence? 83 hours. Trapped underground, in total darkness and suffocating confinement, her already sick body began to overheat. This was the beginning of Barbara's unimaginable battle against claustrophobia, dehydration, and the desperate struggle for every breath through a narrow ventilation tube. Above ground, the threat reached her father. The kidnappers demanded a staggering $500,000 ransom. That's over $4 million in today's money. The message was clear. If he contacted the police, his daughter would be left to die in her underground prison. For Robert Mackle, a desperate race against time had begun. The first attempt to drop the ransom money was a disaster. Police cars were spotted nearby, and the kidnappers fled. Fearing the worst, Barbara's father took a massive risk. He placed a cryptic ad in the newspaper, a public plea to the kidnappers, begging them to make contact again, and assuring them the police were no longer involved. It was a shot in the dark, a father's desperate prayer broadcast for the world and his daughter's captors to see. Meanwhile, underground, the hours crawled by. 1 day, 2, 3. Barbara's body was failing. She was losing weight, strength, and hope. But somewhere deep inside, the will to live flickered on. She focused on thoughts of her family, of Stuart, of the future she refused to let them steal. Finally, on the 4th day, the kidnappers made contact again. This time, the ransom drop was successful. Robert Mackle handed over $500,000 in a suitcase. And then, the call he had been praying for came through. But the kidnappers' instructions were terrifyingly vague. They gave a general location in rural Georgia. No precise coordinates, no map, no X to mark the spot. The search was on. Her father, along with an army of FBI agents and local police, descended on the area. It was like searching for a single grain of sand on a vast, dark beach. As the hours ticked by, hope began to fade. Everyone feared they were no longer looking for a living person, but for a grave. Then, a moment of sheer chance. An exhausted FBI agent, weary from the frantic search, stumbled and fell to the ground. As he lay there, his hand brushed against something hard and plastic sticking out of the dirt. It was the ventilation pipe. A cry went up. "Here! Over here!" The scene erupted into a frenzy of desperate digging. Agents and workers clawed at the earth with their bare hands, with shovels, with anything they could find. The clock had ticked past 83 hours. Rain had started to fall, seeping into the soil, making the air in the box even heavier. And then, they broke through. They pried open the lid of the fiberglass tomb. A weak hand reached out. Barbara Mackle, pale, gaunt, and covered in dirt, emerged into the light. She had lost 13 pounds, but she was alive. The world watched, breathless, as this young woman, who had been buried for 3.5 days, took her first breath of fresh air. She had done the impossible. She had survived. The investigation that followed quickly unmasked the culprits. The mastermind was Gary Stephen Christ, a brilliant but twisted research assistant with dreams of pulling off the perfect crime. His accomplice was his lover, Ruth Eisemann-Schier. Their meticulously planned crime, born from greed and a chilling lack of empathy, had captivated and horrified the nation. In the end, justice took its course, though many felt it was insufficient. Ruth, captured after becoming the first woman on the FBI's most wanted list, received a reduced sentence for her cooperation. Christ served time, was paroled, but his life of crime continued until he eventually died in prison. But the true legacy of this story belongs to Barbara. She went on to marry her sweetheart, Stuart. Her incredible story of resilience became an inspiration to millions. She co-wrote a book about her ordeal, aptly titled 83 Hours Till Dawn, turning her trauma into a testament to the power of the human spirit. After sharing her story, Barbara chose to step away from the public spotlight, preferring to live the rest of her life in peace and privacy, a life she fought so hard to reclaim from the darkness of that box. Her story remains a powerful reminder that even in the deepest, most suffocating darkness, the will to survive can shine brighter than any fear. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey. If you found this story as compelling as I did, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you do not miss our next deep dive into history's most fascinating tales. See you next time.